64. American or native fascism is different from, although it has some characteristics of, the European brand of fascism. American or native fascism does not indicate loyalty to Hitler, Mussolini, or Hirohito, but rather it is a brand of political and economic philosophy, which would subvert our democracy to the domination of a chosen few over the heritage of all Americans who have made their contributions to America regardless of race, creed, or color. Those who are striving to gain control for a privileged few, whether they are the descendants of the Mayflower, or so-called Anglo-Saxon whites, or economic Tories, can be described as fascists in America. Rev. Adolph J. Sabbath. Congressional Record, the 30th of April, 1945. Native fascists. How to spot them and stop them. Fascism is not the easiest thing to identify and analyze, nor, once in power, is it easy to destroy. It is important for our future and that of the world that as many of us as possible understand the causes and practices of fascism in order to combat it. Points to stress. 1. Fascism is more apt to come to power at a time of economic crisis. 2. Fascism inevitably leads to war. 3. It can come to any country. 4. We can best combat it by making our democracy work. You are away from home, separated from your families, no longer at a civilian job or at school, and many of you are risking your very lives because of a thing called fascism. We've heard of fascism's concentration camps like Dachau in Germany and its torture chambers, like Majdanek in Poland. We've heard of its planned mass murder of whole peoples, what scholars call genocide. Some of the things that have been done to people by fascists seem too horrible to believe, especially to Americans who believe in live and let live. Hard-boiled American correspondents, formerly skeptical, now believe because they have seen. We Americans have been fighting fascists for more than 3 years. When Cecil Brown, one of the leading war correspondents, came back from the battlefronts, he went on a trip that took him into big cities and small towns all over America. He talked and listened to all kinds of people. He found that most Americans are vague about what fascism really means. He found few Americans who were confident they would recognize a fascist if they saw one. And are we in uniform any more certain what fascism is, where it came from, what made it strong? Do we know how fascism leads men to do the things done to people at Majdanek? Do we know how it leads them to attack helpless nations? Are Majdaneks and war inevitable results of fascism? Do all fascists speak only German, Italian, and Japanese? Or do some of them speak our language? Will military victory in this war automatically kill fascism? Or could fascism rise in the United States after it's been crushed abroad? What can we do to prevent it? Perhaps we ought to get to know the answers. If we don't understand fascism and recognize fascism, are there American fascists? How it starts? Question. How does fascism get in power? How can a violent program that enslaves the people win any support? Fascism came to power in Germany, Italy, and Japan at a time of social and economic unrest. A small group of men, supported in secret by powerful financial and military interests, convinced enough insecure people that fascism would give them the things they wanted. They did so partly by clever propaganda and deception. They promised the people that fascism would bring them great power and prosperity. The details differed from country to country, but the general pattern was the same. The Japanese spoke of a greater Asia co-prosperity sphere. Mussolini mouthed humanitarian ideals and promised a reborn Roman Empire. Hitler and his associates adopted the name National Socialist German Workers' Party Nazi, and announced objectives that attracted many Germans. At the very time fascists proclaimed that their party was for the average citizen, they were financed by big industrialists and financiers who wanted to rule the people with an iron hand, by propaganda and deception. The fascists promised everything to everyone. They would make the poor rich and the rich richer. To farmers, they promised land through elimination of large estates. To workers, jobs and high wages. To small businessmen and industrialists, security and profits through the crushing of socialists and communists. To the nation, glory and wealth through conquest. They claimed it was their right, as a superior people, to rule the world. Once they had gained enough followers to form their storm troops, they began using force to stifle and destroy opposition. Those who resisted were beaten, tortured, or killed. The fascists knew all believers in democracy were their enemies. Democracy, faith in the common sense of the common people, was the direct opposite of the fascist principle of rule by the elite few. How it works? Question. How could the fascists keep their contradictory promises once they got in power? How did their program actually work out? It was easy enough to promise everything before they were in power. Once they gained it, they broke their promises to the middle class, the workers, and the farmers. Torture and killing became official government policy. The first victims were those same farmers, workers, and small businessmen who had believed the propaganda. Some disappeared. Others came home to their families by return mail in little jars of ashes. The concentration camps and graves filled with the opponents of fascism. Out went equality before the law, free elections, independent unions, schools, and freedom of speech, press, and religion. Pastor Niemöller was thrown into a concentration camp. Cardinal Initzer was stoned. Catholic priests were imprisoned. Jews were murdered in cold blood. Synagogues destroyed. Christian ministers ousted from Japan. The fascists solved unemployment by turning their nations into giant war machines.